All right, today's show, Colin Cowherd had an interesting thing to say about the Miami Dolphins. And then also, the path for the playoffs is there for the Miami Dolphins. We'll look at the schedule, look at how they fare in the AFC playoff picture, and break it all down. But make sure you do follow me over on Twitter because you would have seen the Colin Cowherd tweet and quote before this show on my Twitter. I tweeted it out. I also talk about the Dolphins every day, and they signed or claimed Tyrell Dodson earlier on in the week. I also predicted that. So at Nic_Rohloff is the handle. Go give me a follow over there. All right, here is what Cowherd had to say on the Dolphins on the Herd on Fox Sports, saying it was the rare NFL game in the middle of a season that I thought could have turned a franchise around. And I actually do agree to a degree. Now, am I going to go say out there that this win against the Rams completely changed the outlook of the organization? No, but it did change how I think fans and maybe Stephen Ross viewed this build. And when I say build, who am I talking about? I'm talking Chris Grier, Mike McDaniel, and Tua Tagovailoa. And I actually detailed this in depth, which is also why you subscribe to the channel, on this video. This was the thumbnail. And if you want a more in-depth explanation before the game against the Rams, watch this video. But I went through a 13-minute show detailing why this game against the Rams was important for this current season to try to turn it around and make the playoffs, but also change the outlook on the build of this group and if Tua, Mike McDaniel, and Chris Grier should all be in their current positions for years to come. And to me, the future of this team was absolutely in the balance because if you're unable to get wins, and it's more of the same, that's an indictment on this terrible roster that Chris Grier built. It's an indictment on Mike McDaniel's inability to coach this team and get the season turned around. And it's a also look on Tua not being able to lead this team to wins after returning and from the injuries. So not only is it important for them to try to save this season, but it is important for the future as well. But specifically this year, you can now make a run for the playoffs. And it's why I was so frustrated over the first 8 games of the year. Because when you think about some of the missed opportunities Miami had, at home in week 4 against the Titans, that should have been a win. I don't care, Tyler Huntley in his first game. That should have been a win. The Titans are a terrible football team. You should have beat the Colts in Indianapolis. You should have beat Arizona at home. You should have had so many opportunities to win. And you simply weren't able to get them done, and it's why you're in the position you are in now. But there are still hope for the remainder of the season. But let me know if you agree with Colin Cowherd, because we're about to talk more about Tua Tagovailoa coming up here in just a second. But let me know quickly if you agree or disagree with what Cowherd had to say about the future of this football team. And I do want to transition into a little bit of a segment about Tua before we talk about the playoffs, because Tua over the last 3 weeks has shown why he got paid in the offseason. And I know a lot of Dolphins fans out there are not Tua supporters, and I know a lot of people don't think he could lead them to a Super Bowl. You may be right. But the alternative is being in QB hell and having to try to do what the Bears have been unable to do and find that next quarterback. And you never know. The draft is a crapshoot, and there's really no free agents out there. Because since Tua has returned from IR, he's now been 3 games in. He has completed 77.6% of his passes through 3 games for 670 yards, 4 touchdowns to 1 interception, and you see the QB rating and QBR. He has been on a different level over the past 3 weeks. And have the yardage been there like last season where he led the league in passing? No. But he's been efficient. He completed nearly 90% of his passes against the Bills in that heartbreaking loss in Week 9. He's been efficient. He's only turned it over twice, one being a fumble, one being an interception. And he's put up 27, 27, and 23 points for this offense. And the best part about what I've seen from Tua is that even though he's returning from a concussion and it forced him to be out for 4 games, he is not shied away from being mobile. Now, he's not going out there and diving headfirst offensively into players like he did with Damar Hamlin, but he did try to make a tackle with his head on the interception against the Rams, which was a disaster, but we'll talk about that a different day. But look at what he did outside the pocket. When he was forced to leave the pocket due to pressure or he just steps up and extended plays, he was phenomenal. 6 of 6, 92 yards, and 4 of them were first downs. On the first drive of the game, he evaded pressure, scrambled out of the pocket, and fired a 36-yard strike down to Jalen Waddle, which set out Miami in the red zone. And then you look at what he did on a couple of the plays at the end of the game in the fourth quarter, which helped put the game away. Empty pressure on his blind side from the right side of the offensive line. He spins out of it, evades it, and on 3rd and 19, just evades pressure, dumps it down to Raheem Mostert, and you pick up 23 yards and get in field goal range. He was phenomenal yesterday, and that 3rd and 6, he scrambled out and found Odell Beckham Jr., which set up Miami for the final field goal of the game. But it's not the only reason he was clutch yesterday and showed why he's a franchise quarterback. On 3rd downs yesterday, in the second half, very specific numbers, but he was 6 of 6 for 84 yards and 118.8 QB rating. He was nearly perfect on 3rd downs in the second half. The money downs when your QB1, your franchise guy, needed to show up the most against the Rams. He did it almost every single time. He is proving some of the haters wrong. And yes, you can still go out there and say he is not good enough to win a Super Bowl for this team. You might be right. But he is earning some of that contract, and it's showing you why that when he's healthy and when Tua is on the football field, this Dolphins team can beat anyone on any given Sunday, and it will be a competitive ball club moving forward. All right, coming up in just a second is a playoff push on the horizon for the Miami Dolphins. But before we get to that, we are sponsored by DraftKings, and with the NBA Cup being back, as well as the NFL season in full swing, you have to get started with DraftKings. The Emirates NBA Cup is here. You can win big getting in on the action at DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NBA. All 30 teams, split into 6 groups, every Tuesday and Friday playing for the right to advance in the single elimination in-season tourney, culminating in the NBA Cup Championship in Vegas. First time, here's something special just for you. New DraftKings customers bet $5 to get $200 in bonus bets instantly. Score big with DraftKings Sportsbook. Every point counts. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app and use code HEATCHAT. That's code HEATCHAT for new customers to get $200 in bonus bets when you bet just $5. Only on DraftKings, the crown is yours. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. In New York, call 8778-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY 467-369. In Connecticut, help is available for problem gambling. Call 888-789-7777. Visit ccpg.org. Please play responsibly. On behalf of Boot Hill Casino and Resort in Kansas, 21 plus age and eligibility varies by jurisdiction. Void in Ontario. Bonus bets expire 168 hours after issuance. For additional terms and responsible gaming resources, see dkng.co/bball. And you can take advantage of the home of NBA player props on DraftKings. We could also look ahead to this Week 11 game for the Dolphins as they host the Las Vegas Raiders. I'll take Dolphins minus 7.5, and I'll also take the Raiders to score under 14.5 points at plus 154. They just held the Rams to 15. I think the Raiders are scoring 14 plus. Come on, no chance. Lines and odds are subject to change, but make sure you download the app and use promo code HEATCHAT when creating an account to get $200 in bonus bets instantly when you place a $5 wager. Shout out to the king, DraftKings. All right, let's move over to the Dolphins playoff push now. Is one coming from the Dolphins? Well, let's take a look at the AFC playoff picture heading into Week 11. And it's very evident that the division is off the table. The Bills continue to win football games, and boy, was I wrong on Buffalo. I predicted them to go 8 or 9 or 9 and 8 and barely make the playoffs as the last wild card team. That's obviously not going to happen. But when you look at the wild card for Miami, they only are a game and a half back of Denver for the 7 spot and only a half game back of Indianapolis, and Cincinnati, who are 4 and 6. So there's only 2 teams ahead of you before you get to the team you are chasing in Denver. And when you look at the final 8 games for the Miami Dolphins, you should be able to win against the Raiders and Patriots, which if you do that at home against bad football teams, you're 5 and 6. And then that sets you up for the final 6 games with Green Bay, New York, Cleveland, Texans, and 49ers. And the Jets are bad, and they might cancel the season and give up. if we're going to be honest. It looks like they might have already given up against Arizona. So let's be optimistic and say you sweep the Jets, you beat the Raiders and Patriots, and you also beat the Browns because they stink, and that game won't be on Sunday Night Football because it'll be flexed out. So that's a pretty optimistic view, but they are 5-0, which means their record would technically be 8-6, which means you just have to go 2-1 against Green Bay, Houston, and San Francisco. And sure, that will be tough, but if you do that in this optimistic life that I want to live, you're 10-7, and that probably gets you into the playoffs because I doubt that the Broncos are going to go 5-2 in their final 7 games. But even if you go 1-2 in that 3-game stretch, you're still 9-8, and that might be good enough because I would probably predict that the Broncos go 4-3 down the final 7 games of the season, and you might be able to win the tiebreaker. So what am I trying to get at here? Sadly, I believe. And I told you guys last week that after the Bills game, I won't believe in this football team unless they get to 6-6 and won 4 in a row, beating the Rams, Raiders, Patriots, Packers. Well, I lied because that's the fan in me, and I am choosing to have an optimistic view on the rest of the season. And with how chaotic this year has been, with Tua being back, this offense having some confidence, the defense having some confidence after this game against the Rams, and potentially 2 not shutout games, but good performances on the way against bad offenses in the Raiders and Patriots, everything is heading your way in the final 6-game stretch of the season, which gives you the opportunity to really go on a run. Are the Dolphins going to be postseason bound? Can the Dolphins make the playoffs? Type Y for yes or type N for no. Let me know your thoughts on the matter down in the comment section. And to round out today's show, we're going to talk about the schedules of Denver and Los Angeles. Because they get hard, folks. They really do. And we're going to look at the schedule for both teams here because it's not easy. Let's start with the Chargers, who are 6-3. Everyone's surprise team. Everyone's excited that they're doing well in Harbaugh's first season in Herbert. Well, guess what? I have something to tell you. It's fraudulent. They are eerily similar to the 11-0 Pittsburgh Steelers during the COVID season, yet they're only 6-3. The Chargers are 6-3, and their 3 losses are against the only 3 good football teams they've played this year. Their only win that is worth anything to me is beating the Denver Broncos, but that was also in the first month of the season. So to me, I'm not really that moved by what the Chargers have done. And when you look at their next 4 games, yes, it's at home against Cincinnati, home against the Ravens, and then in Atlanta and in Kansas City. I think there's a legitimate chance that they go 0-4 in this 4-game stretch, or at least, honestly, at best, 1-3. I'm being serious when I say that. At best, 1-3. And say they do go 1-3 at their best. That puts them at 7-6 with 4 games left to go. We're right there, guys. And then games in New England and at Las Vegas end the year isn't great, but it's not the easiest schedule. I don't think they're going to go better than 10-7. So, like I said, you get to 9-8, 10-7, you're right there. Now, let's take a look at Denver's remaining schedule. It's a little bit easier than Los Angeles, but it's not a cakewalk. They still have their bye remaining, but they play the Chiefs, they play the Bengals, they play the Chargers, they play the Falcons. So, if you're a big-time rooter of making the playoffs, you need the Falcons to do a job this week on the road in Denver. So, hopefully, Kirk Cousins comes to play. Now, I will say this with Denver's schedule. It's going to be tricky down the stretch of the season because you see this 3-game stretch for Denver. 15, 16, 17. Colts, Chargers, Bengals. The Colts are 4-6 fighting for a playoff spot. The Bengals are 4-6 fighting for a playoff spot. And the Chargers host a playoff spot right now. So those 3 games will be very decisive in who gets shaken up in this wild card race in the AFC. But the point I'm making on today's show is that there is a chance here that Denver and Los Angeles falter down the stretch of the season and open up the door slightly for the Dolphins to go on a run to end the year, going 9-8, going 10-7, to still clinch a playoff spot. Buckle up, folks. The playoff run is going to be fun. And assuming they take care of business at home against 2 of the worst teams in football in the Patriots and Raiders over the next 2 weeks, that's going to be an interesting final 6 weeks of the year, folks. So buckle up and stay locked in here at the channel. But also make sure you're following me over on Twitter because we're going to break down everything around this football team over there. At Nic_Rohloff is the handle. Go give me a follow right now, and I'll see you with a video tomorrow. Go Fins.